Welcome to the Family Beacon podcast from Minnesota Family Council with hosts Grace Evans and Moses Brattrud. Stay informed on the top stories on life, family, and religious freedom. Get the facts, stand for truth. Hello, and welcome back to the Family Beacon podcast. My name is Grace Evans, and I'm here with...
Is it? Is it really?
Is it? You will never know. No. I'm here with Moses, as you can tell, guys. We are so excited to be here. You guys, next week is a huge week here in Minnesota. There are very important elections taking place. We want you to be informed on who you should vote for, who's pro-life, who's pro-family. So Moses will be giving us a little briefing on the upcoming election. So super excited about that. We're also going to be talking about something that Anne Hathaway, a famous actress, said. She said that abortion is an act of mercy. She said that in an interview.
Okay, so I already hate that.
Yeah, so I have a lot to say on that, to be honest. So we will roll a clip from her, and then we will discuss her opinion on abortion. And we will also be talking about some pro-life speaking events that we have been doing, especially one that is coming up this Sunday by the time that you guys are watching this. And so we'd love to see you guys there. All right, so let's jump in. We have a good amount of things to discuss. Let's talk about the upcoming election, Moses. What does our audience need to know?
Okay, so this is probably one of the biggest midterm... Okay, people say that every year, right?
Right.
This midterm election is really important. First of all, it's the first test of, in a sense, President Joe Biden's agenda, the first chance that voters have had to give him a yes or a no, because it is always a referendum on the president who's in power. And then locally here in Minnesota, there's some really close races, some close races that we haven't seen in a while. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. If we look at the polls, Scott Jensen, the Republican candidate, is close to a statistical tie with Governor Tim Walz. So if you average the last three polls, he's behind by 4.6 points about.
Jensen is? Or
Jensen is behind by 4.6 points according to the polls. And that is close to the average margin of error for a poll, which is 3 to 4 points. So now one thing that could complicate that is that pollsters are telling us this year more than ever that Republican and conservative voters are not picking up the phones. A lot of these the most reliable type of poll is telephone polls versus polls that are just done online. And Republicans are just not picking up the phones and not answering these calls. And I can't blame them. But specifically, if certain groups of voters do that, like if more Democrat-leaning voters do answer the phones, then the polls are going to reflect their numbers. This happened in 2016. Nobody thought Donald Trump had a chance. He pulled it out of the hat by getting those undercounted conservative voters to turn out.
Shocked.
Yeah, I was shocked. I honestly, it's a little bit like 9/11, not a bad thing, and just in the sense that I remember exactly where I was when I found out that Donald Trump was doing a better. Maybe we'll have to tell those stories.
Imagine, it's so bad that I don't remember, but for a minute there, I was like, wait, who was he even running against? Like, I literally forgot that he was running against Clinton. That's how. Ouch. That's how have least importance she holds in my mind. I'm like,
do you remember how she specifically booked a room at the Javits Center in New York City?
I do remember that.
Ceiling?
Yeah, because she thought she was so sure she was going to win. Which honestly, hasn't she run like 3 different times and dropped out? Or maybe that was
she ran in 2008. Yep.
That is hard luck, ma'am. Like, people really don't like you that much that you lose 3 times. She's not a nice woman.
Just twice.
Okay. Her husband, I know.
But big. I mean, she was very close to getting the nomination in 2008. She was very close to getting the presidency in 2016. And, every once in a while, an article will pop up saying, it's Hillary time. Like, Joe Biden shouldn't run again in 2024.
No, people don't like nasty women.
Ouch.
They don't.
No, but, I mean, I have to say I agree. So, if we look at the Minnesota races, Grace, Scott Jensen is really close. He's probably closer than any Republican has been to the governorship since Tim Pawlenty won. That was the last Republican.
He's been spending a lot of money in marketing, I have to say. So I'm glad that it's paying off, because there are billboards everywhere, great colors, U of M colors, Viking colors. Like, that's just a very Minnesota vibe.
Yeah.
I barely ever see signs or advertisements for Governor Walz besides the women going off about how they needed. Really?
Not billboards, but
I don't see billboards. I see online ads for him.
I see a ton of online ads, and I get a mailer.
Done.
I get a mailer almost every day, Grace. Wow. Yeah, it's a full-size glossy mailer. I live in a really strong Democratic district, so and I've gotten, I think, 15 or so mailers, and none of them have been in favor of Jensen. All of them have been in favor of Walz, and about 13 of them were dinging Jensen on abortion, and 2 of them were dinging him on education.
I did get one from Governor Walz, and it had a quote from Scott Jensen, and it was, "I would sign any piece of pro-life legislation that crossed my desk."
Yeah.
And it was in air quotes from the Walz campaign, and I was like, wow, surely don't want to vote for him with this quote. You know, like, oh, what a turnoff.
Yeah, I shared some of these ads that I was getting with a friend. He's like, I'm going to vote for him even more now.
Right.
So obviously there's a way in which those things can backfire. So we'll see what happens, because the Democrats are really making this race about abortion. So we'll find out.
Do you know that Representative Jim Nash is doing a red wave party? He's calling it a red wave party the night of the election.
No, I did
not. In
Laconia. Wow.
You could come if you want. I'm going to be going. Fun. Okay, my representative, guys, I have to brag on him for a minute. Representative Nash, he's so awesome. And the fact that I actually know him is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, it is so cool to have a representative. He throws parties. He did a birthday bash. He did like a Halloween bonfire night. Dude, he's so invested in the community.
It's called like the Nash Cash birthday bash.
Yeah.
He
Johnny
sings
Cash.
Johnny Cash.
Yes, and he's in the community. Like, he is out door knocking. He's not making his people go door knock for there's other representatives that he wants to be reelected, and he will go door knock for them, like with their campaign. So cool. He's very invested.
Yeah. Representative Nash just does the work, and does the work at the Capitol, and he does the work.
Okay, I'm gonna need to send this to him.
Yeah,
honestly,
absolutely,
because we are fans.
Yeah.
But okay, so the race is very close. I'm very interested to see what happens, and honestly, a little nervous.
Yeah, we'll see, and yeah, my nerves always are at a fever pitch this close to an election. So we look at the other races in Minnesota. The Republican candidates are looking a little bit better there. Attorney General Jim Schultz is up by about 7 points over incumbent Attorney General Keith Ellison. Now, Ellison was behind in the polls in 2018, but he pulled it out of the hat and won. So we'll see if Jim Schultz can keep that momentum up and win the race. And then also Ryan Wilson, the candidate for state auditor, is ahead of the Democratic incumbent Julie Baha.
Wouldn't it be crazy if we just had this massive red wave? Because I am honestly so sick of people saying that Minnesota is such a blue state.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not true. We are for sure a purple state.
I'm pretty sure that throughout, so Tim Pawlenty was the last Republican governor. I'm pretty sure that the last time we had all of these offices, or even more than one office in the state house controlled by Republicans, it was, I mean, when I was a kid, or maybe even before I was born. Yeah.
This would be the year, though, honestly, after what happened.
Minnesotans have a history of ticket splitting. They'll vote for different parties depending on which candidates they like. And, I kind of like that as an independent streak. So we'll see what happens. Currently, also, the incumbent DFL Secretary of State, Steve Simon, is pulling ahead of GOP challenger Kim Crockett. So, Grace, I also want to talk about the national races, and this is really important because not only does it talk about the direction of our country, but it also is some of these races are in Minnesota, right? Like you're voting for your U.S. House member, they're going to Washington. All the other candidates that we're talking about, they're going to St. Paul. But so in terms of our candidates who are going to Washington, the 2 closest races in Minnesota are probably CD1, which is the southern portion of the state, including Rochester, and is that right? I'm going to have to look that up because I don't want to say something wrong. I think it does, but they've just changed the map, so let's find out for sure. Anyway, the candidates in the 1st District are former Hormel CEO Jeff Ettinger. My grandparents have a lawn sign for him. Oh, and they live by Rochester, so that there you go. And the incumbent, who just won a special election this summer after Representative Hagedorn passed away. So the incumbent right now is GOP Representative Brad Finstad, and we've endorsed Brad Finstad. So that looks like it's not going to be very close. Looks like right now the polls are 46-37 for Finstad. Now, if we look at CD2, which is closer to the metro, and that stretches from a little bit north of Mankato all the way to West St. Paul, pretty much, and South Washington County, and whole lots of areas there. All of Dakota County, most of Scott County, half of LeSueur County, and all of LeSueur County, and half of Rice County. So the candidates there are incumbent DFLer Angie Craig, and then her challenger is Tyler Kistner, and we've endorsed Tyler Kistner, and he's very close right now. There's a 1-point gap separating them in the polls.
Wow,
and that
very tight.
There's a huge amount of money being spent in this race. Even nationally, people see that as one of the races that Republicans have to win if they want to take back the U.S. House. So now this is really interesting, going back to state politics for a little bit, because the AP News just covered how close races are in Minnesota. It's really interesting. Minnesota currently is one of only 3 states in the country where the government is divided. So the Senate in Minnesota is controlled by Republicans. The House is controlled by Democrats. That could all change. We'll see what happens. And also, we could see that if Republicans are able to gain an upper hand in the election next week in Minnesota, we could see a lot more attention being paid to Minnesota as a potential battleground state. All of the northern states from Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, and we're on the end of that. Like all of these northern Midwestern states, all of those have battlegrounds. Many of them have been battlegrounds for generations. But Minnesota has never been a battleground, truly. And Donald Trump wanted to put Minnesota in play, and in 2016 he came pretty close. 2020 he did not come as close. So, Minnesotans, like voters everywhere, are swayed by the winds of change. So we'll see what 2022 is going to do, whether it could make Minnesota a political battleground again. And I thought this was interesting in the AP article. This is a quote. Lawmakers who've built their careers on opposition to abortion are bound to test how far they can go in seeking new restrictions, despite a Minnesota Supreme Court ruling that the state constitution protects abortion rights. Now that is, I think, a good description of the situation. There are lawmakers who are committed, or candidates who are committed to restricting abortion, even while we have the state Supreme Court case that we can't overturn just through legislation. And that is what we're trying to do, meanwhile, as we also try to overturn the Supreme Court case. Okay, so let me bring this in for a landing. I want to talk again about the national scene. So we're looking at about a 56% chance, according to the polling outfit 538, that Republicans are going to take back the U.S. Senate, and close to an 84% chance that they will take the U.S. House. If you look at the map of which Senate races are up for, because only a third of them are ever up for election in any one election year, the map is not super favorable to Republicans. So if they win the Senate, it'll be, the odds are against them in a sense. If you just look at the political map, a lot of red states don't have elections this year. But if we look at the candidates so if the GOP wins the Senate, it'll be because of these 3 races. It'll be because of Nevada, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. They have to win all 3. So Nevada, very surprising that this is in play at all. It's in play both for the gubernatorial race and for the Senate race. I haven't looked into this too closely, but I know that with there's concerns of a rising crime, just like there are everywhere. So we could see the GOP challenger triumph there, and he's ahead in the polls. Again, also in Georgia, we have the controversial former NFL star Herschel Walker, and he could unseat Raphael Warnock, who is controversial also for different reasons. So Raphael Warnock is the Democratic incumbent in Georgia. And then in Pennsylvania, this is the race that's been getting the most attention because on paper it was very not likely to be close. You have Dr. Oz, this former daytime TV star, and he's going up against John Fetterman, the Democratic lieutenant governor. It's been a really odd race. Dr. Oz is like this slick TV personality. People aren't sure to trust him. And then John Fetterman is this he's 6'8" and he had a stroke and wears hoodies all the time. And it's just a very odd man. So yeah,
he wears hoodies all the time. That's just a weird thing to comment on. Like, what?
Well, it is weird because most politicians wear suits.
That is true. That is.
But and you know why he wears a hoodie is because he's got this. I'm not making fun of his appearance, but like he has like some type of lump or something here on his neck. You can Google pictures.
I mean, I guess it's understandable then. I was like, why does he just wear a hoodie all the time? But
yeah, he's a very, very odd person. So that's a race that people are paying attention to. Now, how is this relevant to you? Well, the people who control the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House, they are going to really chart a course for what America is going to look like after Roe. If Democrats win the House and the Senate by strong margins, they are going to take Roe v. Wade, which we all think is overturned, and they're going to make it into federal law.
They're going to try.
They're going to try. They have already, I believe, the House has already passed that bill. So if they don't have the votes in the Senate to do that, but if they get them, then they will. I mean, absolutely they will. Democratic voters are fired up about this issue, just like Republican voters are. So we don't talk about national politics all that often on the Family Beacon, but it's important the week before the election to give you guys an update so you know where things are sitting. And the most important thing you can do is get out and vote and go to mnfamilyvoter.com to get your pro-life ticket. And then please do share that. If you have family members and friends and you've been talking with them and they say, oh, I hate both the parties, I don't want to vote, I don't want to take off work or whatever.
Take off of work.
Well, some people have to do that to vote, and that's...
You can vote absentee.
That is actually true. Yeah, and in fact, absentee voting, good point, is open through Monday. So you can just
I'm probably
going to
do that. I usually do that.
I'm not 100% sure if it's open on weekends, but I think during the weekend... if you live in a very rural area, it might not be, but check that out. Go to the Secretary of State's website. Find out when you can vote early.
We'll have it linked in the description.
Yeah, we'll have that linked in the description, and they have a lot of great resources for how you can vote early. I believe it is now too late to mail in an absentee ballot, so you would have to go in and vote in person, but you don't have to wait till Tuesday to do that. That is the point.
But I do like going in person because then you get that little sticker that says I voted. I really like that. That is an appeal for me.
Well, that's the only option people have now because you can't mail in anymore. I want to just be very clear. Don't mail in your ballot because it probably won't get there by Tuesday. Take that in person.
Yeah. So guys, we need you guys to get out there and vote because the power is really in your hands, is in all of our hands. Like if we want to see a pro-life Minnesota, then we got to get out there and vote for a pro-life Minnesota.
Absolutely.
So let's get on it.
Amen.
All right. Speaking of.
Yeah. No, let me give you a transition, Grace. So we've been talking about national abortion politics, but we also need to talk about the culture.
Yeah.
And we need to talk about how people are treating the subject. And even, unfortunately, Oscar-winning actresses. So
yes.
What did Anne Hathaway do?
So Anne Hathaway, for those of you that may not know, is a very famous actress. She starred in The Princess Diaries and The Devil Wears Prada. And recently, it was the 16-year anniversary of The Devil Wears Prada. And so she was being interviewed on The View just about the movie in general. And
my favorite TV show.
It's not a TV show. Oh, The View. Okay, I was like, The Devil Wears Prada is a movie.
Right. I do like that movie.
Okay, so... She used the anniversary of the film to perpetuate two different lies. The first lie is that women need abortion to succeed. And the second lie is that women should be fighting for a world where this is the case. And so I want to go ahead and roll a clip for you. Usually when we roll clips, they're pretty short because I don't want it to be too draining on you guys to hear lies blasted into your eardrums, but to get the context, I want to give her the context. So we'll be playing a clip that's a little bit longer than a minute, so bear with us. We'll
still pretty short unless you're Gen Z.
So go ahead. Well, I mean, it's so sad to listen to. It's like,
sure.
Oh, geez. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and roll that right now.
Some 16-year-old's life has been irrevocably changed because of the current overturning of Roe v. Wade. And in this character, I played a young woman who was starting out her career. And when you are a young woman starting out your career, your reproductive destiny matters a great deal.
Of course.
Yeah. And it had just happened, and I think about it all the time. I think we all think about it all the time, and what its implications are, and what it means to live in a country that puts us in this position.
Again.
Again.
Yeah.
Again. And so if I were to play that role nowadays, I couldn't take that for granted. I couldn't take that freedom for granted, the freedom of choice. And by the way, this is not a moral conversation about abortion.
Right.
This is a practical conversation about women's rights. And by the way, human rights, because women's rights are human rights. And the freedom that we all need to be able to choose and build our lives and have access to excellent health care.
Yeah.
May I just say one other thing, and just without going into too many details, my own personal experience with abortion, and I don't think we talk about this enough, abortion can be another word for mercy.
Man, that's just so sad.
Yeah, I know. Just like, it's really sad because she has bought into the lie that women need abortion to succeed. And then she's going out there and she's saying to all the women, she's saying, like, yeah, you need this to succeed. You need this to be successful. And so one thing I wanted to point out is just the irony of the fact that she personally is saying this. She referenced that she has a personal experience with abortion, which probably means she did have an abortion, which is really sad, right? But the very ironic thing here is that in the movie, The Devil Wears Prada, it's a story about how this girl is very career-driven, or like it becomes very career-driven, I should say, and she works for a mean, terrible person. And she starts the movie, and Anne Hathaway is sweet and kind and not very stylish, but she's very, like, a good person. She has a lot of friends. And then over the course of the movie, she's working for this mean lady, and she begins to sacrifice other people for the sake of her career. Mm-hmm. And so what's really ironic is that Anne is probably a pretty good actress because she doesn't even believe the morals that this movie puts forth, which is the morals is all about how you shouldn't sacrifice others for the sake of your career, because she loses her friends because she becomes this terrible person. And there's this whole scene in the movie that talks about that, which is really interesting. And so a lot of conservative outlets have pointed this out. They said that the actress failed to learn the very lesson at the heart of the movie she is celebrating. People are always more important than a career.
Absolutely.
So she failed to understand that, and so it means she's probably an even better actress than we give her credit for, because if she can pretend that and act so well in a movie that is so famous and not actually believe that people are more important than a career, that's pretty devastating. And the movie shows that choosing your career before everything else just leads to heartbreak, depression, loneliness, because people are the most important things in this world. And so I think that we need to work together to create a world and create a state where no woman is told that those choices, the choice to have an abortion, is ever necessary, because it's not necessary. I mean, in the interview that you guys just watched, she explained that she basically thought that she would have had to put her career on hold if abortion wasn't accessible to her when she had filmed that movie, which probably means she got pregnant around that time, or at least something happened. And so that's devastating, because women don't need to choose between their career and their child. They absolutely don't. There are countless women who debunk that. Yeah. And then the other thing that was at the very end of that clip that she said was, she said, abortion can be another word for mercy. I can't believe she said that, honestly, because she obviously has no understanding of what mercy is, or she has no understanding of what abortion is. And the thing is, I think she knows exactly what abortion is. Both. Right, but I think she knows exactly what abortion is, because she referenced pregnancy as being, you're pregnant with a baby. Like, she used the word baby. She didn't say fetus. She didn't say pregnancy tissue.
It's so pesky for pro-abortion people that people, including pro-abortion people like Anne Hathaway, will continue to use the word baby when they've tried to, like, stop people from doing that. Right.
And so she said it's merciful. And so this is the thing. Abortion is never merciful unless you think that it is merciful to poison a child, to dismember a child, or to crush a child's skull. If you think that's merciful, then sure, that's merciful, but that's not merciful, ever. In every successful abortion, an innocent child is murdered. It is never merciful to directly murder someone. It's never merciful. Yeah. And so that was shocking to me, honestly. The way in which our cultural dialogue has gone from surrounding abortion. We used to say, oh, we want it to be safe, we want it to be legal, we want it to be rare. That was the general consensus. And now the consensus is, oh, it needs to be on demand, anytime, fully taxpayer funded. Not only that, but it's merciful.
Yeah. Shout your merciful abortion. Yeah.
Literally. And so
pretty much like if you get an abortion, you're basically Mother Teresa, except like without the mother part, I guess.
Oh, boom. Dude, roasted. Oh my gosh. Okay, wow. And then the other thing I wanted to just briefly touch on is the fact that she said in that clip that we showed, she said this is not a moral conversation about abortion. This is a practical conversation about women's rights.
Well, of course,
and so
of course it's not.
And you see her absolutely manipulating the setting in which she's speaking, because you can say it's not a moral conversation about abortion to make yourself feel better.
Yeah.
To make yourself feel better about the baby, that you have just affirmed that it's a baby.
Also like, I'm sorry, but she's totally reversing herself. Because mercy is a moral term.
Facts.
Like, she's saying abortion is merciful, which is another way of saying it's moral. And then she's saying, oh, no, but it's not a moral question.
Right.
It actually is a moral question. You're saying it's a good thing. We're saying it's not. So stop trying to pretend this is like a pragmatic thing, like, whether to pave a road with asphalt or cement. It's just like,
That is an excellent point, Moses. Yeah, absolutely. So definitely this was shocking to me that she went that far, because it's one thing to get on and say, like, you support abortion, but it's another thing to say that's a baby and it's merciful to kill that baby, right?
Grace,
so
it's just disgusting to me that we see this. Honestly, a lot of this is something we talk about on the show a lot. People, including very famous people, have no understanding of how to talk about this. Even people who have had perhaps especially people who have had a personal experience with this, they do not understand what happened. Or as Grace said, they don't understand what it means. And I just find that so heartbreaking, and that's why we need to change the narrative. We need to win the culture. We need to get pro-life voices out there. Put Grace in these movies.
Oh, I'm not an actress.
One way to start. I mean, Grace, you maybe not for Meryl Streep's role, but I think you would have. Excuse me, I meant maybe not for Anne Hathaway's role, maybe for Meryl Streep's role.
Oh my! I was like, wow, what a compliment, and then I was like, oh.
You're very young, unlike Meryl Streep in that movie, but the personality similarities are very much there. And that's why the devil wears Prada, but God wears Ralph Lauren.
I am just, guys, never let Moses convince you that I push him around. He bullies me.
Miranda Lambert.
Yeah.
No, Miranda Priestley. I was joking. Miranda Lambert is a country singer.
Okay, I literally don't know.
I don't know why I know this.
He bullies me, you guys. Bully.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not the one who shows up at the office sometimes wearing bright red stiletto heels with little tridents.
I never do that.
See, but
Becca wears red, but not me.
But actually, you do.
No, I don't.
Yeah, she totally wore.
I've literally never worn. I
heels.
do not own red shoes.
And then she had like little horns, and it's kind of creepy.
Were those natural?
I don't know. I'm asking. I'm not. Yeah.
Well, now I have my Halloween costume for next year.
Okay.
Thanks for that, Moses.
I'm being so silly, and I'm gonna keep being silly.
No, after he has crushed me, he's gonna be like, and guess what? Grace is doing speaking events.
No. I was gonna still be silly.
Okay, what were you gonna say?
We'll get to that. Okay, so do you know that there's another famous person named Anne Hathaway?
Is this a joke? No.
No. Actually, it's real. I couldn't believe this, but Shakespeare's wife was named Anne Hathaway.
Okay.
Not Anne Hathaway Shakespeare, just Anne Hathaway. And it's kind of hilarious because this is semi well known. When Shakespeare died, we don't have a ton of evidence for like Shakespeare's life, which is why some people think he didn't even write his plays, and somebody else did. But when he died, we have his
That's
will.
That's a conspiracy theory if I ever heard one.
100%. And a lot of famous people, a lot of Shakespeare scholars even believe it.
Dang.
Who cares what famous people believe? I mean, obviously. But when Shakespeare died, he left his wife, Anne Hathaway, his second best bed. Like that was
I'm dead.
Like that was like the only thing that was left to her in the will. And some people are like, no, it wasn't an insult because like beds were really valuable and like your second best bed would have been like super
literally
great.
Just your bed.
And I'm like, okay, yep, Bill
Okay,
Shakespeare.
I don't know why we're talking about this, Moses. Let's get back on topic.
Okay, yeah.
So,
Grace, we organized an event and we're so excited about it, and we're doing this with First Evangelical Free Church in Maplewood, which is such an easy, convenient drive for almost anyone in the metro area. I hasten to say, and it's going to be an awesome. Are you being
sarcastic?
I'm not.
Okay, good. I feel like it's very central.
Yeah, it's super central. And so we're really excited to be doing an event with them. It's a big venue, so we're hoping to get a good crowd. We just sent an email asking for folks to RSVP. Grace, tell us more about that event. And you are going to be basically the lead person talking. So what are people who come to that event, what are they going to learn?
Really what they should expect, if you guys are thinking about signing up, is you should expect to be equipped with how to turn your pro-life beliefs into action. Because most of us are extremely pro-life. We believe these things, but it's hard sometimes to know where to start, how you actually act based on those convictions. And James tells us that we need to be doers of the word, not only hearers. And so that really is one of the main themes of this talk that I've been giving at a lot of different places. Yeah. It is so important to know how to actually live out our Christian values. And something I talk about a lot in the talk is the fact that as Christians, we have even more of a responsibility to be in the fight for life. Like, I give all the reasons why you should be engaged for life, and you could totally agree with me from a secular perspective. But then I go and I talk about the Christian response and the Christian foundation for life. And so because we have that foundation of Christianity, of being responsible for the voiceless, of being responsible to stand up for the innocent, the sheep that are being led to the slaughter, as Proverbs tells us, we know that God will hold us responsible if we know and we do nothing.
Right.
If we know exactly what's happening and we fail to act. And so I really emphasize that. But something else that's awesome is we really go through a lot of the most common pro-abortion talking points. And I don't get to all of them because there's no way you could possibly in like an hour and 15 minutes. But I give the main ones, I give a response, and really some bullet points that people can put in their back pocket and just whip out when they're having a conversation. And so I think it's a very important event to come to. If there's any event you go to this winter/fall, I guess we're still in the fall, definitely make this a priority, because the only way that we're actually going to change Minnesota and to create a culture of life is if conversations start happening. And so if we empower people to have conversations, which is what I'm doing at all of these events that we've been putting on, we're going to see hearts and minds change. Because it doesn't matter if we elect all the pro-life politicians possible. Like, say we totally win this election, there are so many pro-life candidates. Well, we actually need pro-life people, right? Yeah. We need our country and our state to be filled with admiration for the sanctity of life and for linking arms in this cause. And so this event will be really helpful, I trust, and I've already received really excellent feedback from other people that have heard me give this talk. And then our CEO, John Helmberger, will also be speaking after me, and he'll be talking about specifically being our citizenship worthy of the gospel of Christ, and then a little bit more about voting. Is that correct, Moses?
Yes, yep.
Okay, so I'm really excited for that too. And I just wanted to say to you guys, one of our main engagements in this election, besides the voter guide, has been doing a lot of different speaking events. We went to Duluth, I think last week. Wow, it's been a busy week, let me tell you. Last week, we drove all the way up. I got out of class at like 3:20 and then drove 2.5 hours, gave a thing for 2 hours, then drove back, got home at midnight.
Wow.
Had an 8 a.m. class the next day.
Oh, man.
That is my life, sir. But, it's worth it. And so that's been one of our main engagements.
You don't have to call me sir. I mean, you can, but you don't have to.
One of my roommates calls me ma'am a lot, jokingly. And so
really?
it's been getting in my head like, oh, ma'am, sir. So, okay, anyways, we've been doing a lot of these events. And so we've really been able to fine tune them. Every time we do them, we think of, oh, there's this thing we could change. We could do a little better.
Yeah.
And so really, I think this will be awesome. And it's right before the polls open, guys. Sunday, November 6th. That's this Sunday in Maplewood. 37 hours before the polls open in Minnesota.
Check the show notes. Get that RSVP link. Tell us you're coming. Tell us how many you're bringing with you. It's going to be a great session. We're really excited about that. So, Grace, I'd like to know, what are you reading this week?
Oh, okay. So actually, I can't remember if I talked about this last time. I think I did. The Case Against the Sexual Revolution.
Yes, you
by
did.
Louis Perry.
That sounds really good.
Okay, super good. Again, I'm only about 3 chapters in because it has been. This week had 4 speaking events, you guys, not even joking. So it's been pretty busy. But so I'm reading that still, and that is excellent. And then I'm reading Covenantal and Dispensational Theologies, 4 Views on the Continuity of Scripture. That's
Good
for
heavens.
school.
Sounds like a snooze. I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Don't tell my teacher, but I have to write a summary of like each of the 4 views and then give my view. I think it's due on Monday. It'll be a long weekend for me. And I'm trying to think of what I'm reading for fun these days. I don't even know if I'm reading anything for fun. Yeah, I'm not. I usually am always reading.
Wow, that's how you know that Grace is busy, because you are always reading.
I'm always reading fiction, but I've been so busy. I've been actually getting a little sick and like losing my voice slightly. So I feel like that's it. I've just been sleeping a lot because I need to sleep. So
that's good.
Yeah. How about you though, Moses?
So I went down to Texas this past weekend, and on the plane there and back, I read and finished a book called Put Out More Flags, which is a 1942 novel by Evelyn Waugh, who wrote Brideshead Revisited. And it's really interesting. It's He's an amazing author, one of my favorite authors. I tell people it's like Woodhouse, but like dark. So if you've read the Jeeves and Wooster stories by P.G. Woodhouse, it's like that. So like lighthearted comedy, but there's also like some really dark stuff in there. Not like dark in the sense that Americans understand it now, like, you know, like a horror movie, you know, just more like sad situations and dark comedy. Definitely the best ones are Decline and Fall and Handful of Dust by Evelyn Waugh. Check that out. As well as Brideshead Revisited, which is not a comedy, but it's a really famous, really good novel. And then now I am starting The Ink Black Heart by J.K. Rowling, writing as something Galbraith. So Grace and I have talked about that series on the podcast. I'm not very far, so I can't tell you whether I'm going to like this one as much as I've loved the other ones, but that is what I'm reading right now. So this week on the Family Beacon, we have talked about this crucial election update. We have just a few more days before we find out the culmination of, you know, so many hours of work on our end, getting the voter guide out and putting out endorsements and so many things that we're doing to help pro-life candidates, and we'll see the fruits of our labor, and we can pretty much say for sure some of them will win and some of them will lose, so let's see what happens. And then we also talked about Anne Hathaway and the continuing misunderstanding and honestly the evil surrounding the conversation around abortion in this country. So that is what we talked about today on the Family Beacon podcast. Tune in next week and every week so that you can get the facts, so that you can stand for truth. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to or watching this episode of the Family Beacon podcast from Minnesota Family Council. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you're up to date on life, family, and religious freedom. You can follow us on Instagram at MN Family Council and subscribe to us on YouTube to watch our content. Get the facts, stand for truth.